Trying to make the case for a whopping great V8 super saloon in this economic climate, well, that's pretty tough. Trying to make the case for two whopping V8 super saloons, well, that can be just described as careless, frankly. But here we are, as today we look at the Mercedes GT63S and the Porsche Panamera Turismo E-Hybrid Turbo S. These here at Big Motoring World are around about the £80,000 mark, just below. But hear me out. My argument is this. Nowadays, you want to try and get as much bang for your buck as you can, or in this case, as much power for your pound as you can relieve your wallet of. So, a Porsche 911, for example, fantastic car, absolutely, great sports car, but you're not driving down to IKEA and getting, say, a bit of furniture into one of those. The AMG GT63C or Pro or any of those, really fantastically good cars from Mercedes-Benz. But is it the kind of car that you would want to drive all the way to, say, I don't know, the Amalfi Coast in? Probably not. So you're only getting one car for your money. Whereas with these two, you've got a car that you can drive to Morrison's and do your weekly shopping, no problem. You can go to Gatwick or Heathrow, pick up your mother-in-law and stick 5 weeks worth of luggage in the back of either one of these. The Porsche Panamera Turismo was launched in 2017 for space-conscious Porsche buyers. And what does it do? What does it offer over the usual standard Panamera? Well, at the back, it has a proper wagon-like hatch, which means the extra space gives you 25 litres more of room in the back, 1,400 litres if you put the back seats all the way flat. The back doors also offer a slightly larger entry hole for your passengers, mainly because the roof doesn't slope down at the back, which is all good stuff if you're thinking about how many people you can cram into your Panamera Turismo. And talking of how many people you can cram into your Turismo, well, this is the first Porsche Panamera to offer 5 seats, although Porsche call it a 4+1. I've no idea why. You'd have to write in to your favorite Porsche dealer to ask. Overall, this particular model is a fantastic example of an e-hybrid, something we'll go through in more detail when we take this absolute beauty out on the road. It really is a fantastic piece of kit. Now, you might have always been wondering why it's called a Panamera. Well, it takes influence from the Pan America race that ran all the way down Central America, originally in the 30s, 40s and 50s. It was a fantastic little race if you ever get to see some of the historic footage. And while I'm giving you facts, why not talk about the Porsche badge itself? Well, you've got a horse in the middle that signifies strength, which is, you know, pretty apt given that these things are pretty brawny. You've got the antlers taken from the Württemberg coat of arms, which is the area of Germany that Porsche originated, including the colorings taken from the coat of arms as well. And just in case you forget that your Porsche is from Stuttgart, it has Stuttgart written on the crest itself. You've also got e-hybrid stamped on your front doors with a nice little lime green surround, just giving a subtle pop that you are driving something with a 17.9 kilowatt hour battery under the skin. What does that mean in real life? Well, first of all, you can charge it at home. You get just over 30 miles of electric range in pure form, and it adds 124-ish brake horsepower to the overall horsepower that V8 under the engine hood gives you. 4 litres of V8 plus 17.9 kilowatt hours of battery gives you over 600 horsepower and absolutely smashes you down the road. When you turn it on in the morning, the default mode is e-hybrid, so it doesn't wake your neighbours up. Of course, you can just change that in the settings, smash that V8 into life, and just annoy Pam and Susan next door. Now, I know what you want. You want a rev test. Well, lucky you, I'm going to give it to you. Rev test, please. The inside of this Panamera Turismo e-hybrid Turbo S, well, it's exactly as you'd want for the price point. There's a lot to go through, so sit down and let me guide you through the interior. I'll start with what is in front of me. Sports steering wheel with lovely shifting paddles for that 9-speed auto, which you can put into manual mode by jamming the central selector to the left. You've got heads-up display in this Turismo, and in front of you a lovely mix of analog and digital dashboard displays. So you've got your rev counter right in the middle, which is traditional Porsche. You'll see those on 911s of old. In the middle, it shows how much e-power is being deployed, so how much the battery is being used, and then how much charge you are regenerating into your 17.9 kilowatt hour battery through regen braking. So it charges itself as you go along and kind of stamp on the brake as well. The steering wheel is worth chatting about because it's very easy to overcomplicate the controls on a modern steering wheel. It just is. And then you have drive mode selector. So you've got e-power, so fully hybrid, then hybrid auto, so it picks whether it should be using the battery or the V8, 4-litre V8 in front of you. Then you've got sport, and then if you think to yourself, well, actually, sport's not good enough, Sport Plus, and that gives you everything you need. And you can turn the exhaust pipe on or off using the button in the middle, which is pretty grown up and not something I think I'd ever do. Just turn it on and leave it on. Then in the middle, you've got pretty much the only real full analog bit. You've got a clock in the middle, and that shows just the seconds time. Great for your lap timing, with then a digital display for the actual time just underneath that. And then the fantastically engineered infotainment system. So touchscreen, and it has everything you need. It's nice and responsive, so you've got your home screen that you can play around with depending what blocks or what widgets you want to see. Inbuilt sat nav, but let's be honest, you're going to use the Apple CarPlay or the Android Car. Now, I particularly appreciate this segment because you get to play around with a CGI version of your Panamera Turismo. You can control your spoiler from in here as well if you want. Now, it will automatically go up at just over 60 miles an hour or 70 miles an hour. Now, your middle console, just enough buttons, just enough haptic touch. If I'm going to pick a hole in anything, it's your volume control, which obviously you can use the steering wheel. It's nicely gnarled aluminium, but I don't know, I don't like that it's quite hard to touch. And then you can control your temperature of your climate control using really nice aluminium gnarled buttons. Climate control managed through here. I quite like that all of your vents are managed through the center here. If you press a button, for example, closes the vents and opens them again, which is a nice little touch. A little bit fiddly, maybe, but it's nice and it works, it's quick. The fact that it is nicely leather put together, you've got a little bit of kind of mahogany finish, or at least mahogany styling in here as well, that gives you that air of class. And then we have the seats. Now, this is a Turbo S. You imagine Porsche think you're going to be driving in a spirited fashion. You've got Turbo S in your headrest, but they are so comfortable. They kind of just wrap around your shoulders just enough. Now, I'm relatively wide, but it still hugs me nicely. And then in this particular Panamera Turismo Turbo S, you've got double pan roof, which you can open and close using these beautifully finished metal aluminium controls at the top. 2 cup holders, you and your passenger. And obviously, if you want to know more about cup holders, I've done a video on that before, so you can just click and have a look at that. But then I love the chrono button. Record the lap in a Porsche Panamera Turismo e-hybrid. Porsche, don't forget where they come from. Porsche have proper motorsport history and legacy. They're Le Mans winners multiple times. Nice little weird thing, I guess. If you want to click your surround cameras, the button here does that. Weird. I mean, they obviously don't want to slam too many buttons in the center console, but it just feels a bit weird that it's up here, maybe so it doesn't distract you. Who knows? Now, there's over a dozen speakers in here, Bose speakers no less. Now, of course, the V8 4-litre is musical enough, but if you want to listen to something while you're driving around in e-power or hybrid mode, then at least you've got that option, because it will sound crystal clear. It's a beautiful sound system. But of course, this is a 4+1. So what's it like in the back row of seats? In the back, it is surprisingly roomy. You've got lots of headroom due to the fact that you don't have the sloping Panamera roof like you do on the non-Turismo versions. And The driving seat is in front of me and there's plenty of room. This is my driving position. So lots and lots of room to do what you need to do with your legs. The seats are very similar, if not exactly the same, as the front passenger and the driver, which is nice. They're very comfortable and they do the job. They also have Turbo S written into the headrests. It's a nice little touch. Now, it is a 4+1. I did wonder why Porsche called it that, and then when you have a look at the middle seat, well, you can see why, because there isn't a full-size human person that's going to sit in there, let's be honest with each other, and because of the transmission tunnel in the middle, you're going to have to sit there legs akimbo, which is going to encroach on the two passengers either side. Let's take a bit of a deep dive into the boot of this Panamera Turismo. It is, of course, meant to be practical, and it is. So you've got 525 litres worth of space in the boot, demonstrated here by our camera equipment that's in the rear. We also have all the gubbins to charge the car. It doesn't have the world's biggest lip, so it's fairly easy to put stuff in the rear. And with the parcel shelf down, you can of course fill it full of stuff all the way up to the top, should you wish. So not only is it practical, it is also performance driven. So the two things can actually go hand in hand. Remember, I'm trying to convince you that it is a good value for money proposition. And I think it is. It does so much. Porsche Panamera Turismo Turbo S E Hybrid. It is extraordinarily sturdy. If you've ever driven a Porsche product, it feels very similar to those. So you feel at home, you feel comfortable. But I think more importantly, what that tells you is that the Porsche DNA is alive and well, even in this, which is meant to be practical. And even though this is not a racing car, it's got all those motorsport elements still within it. You've got your chronograph, you can stick your chronograph for your lap time through your infotainment system if you really feel the need. But it feels so tight, so well put together, that it just gives you the confidence just to push on, and push on. I think that is a Porsche trait, regardless of what you're in. The cockpit itself, everything is within reach, everything makes sense. You don't take your eyes off the road all that much to make amendments to what you need when you're driving, infotainment, etc., etc. The heads-up display is nice and crisp. Everything is exactly where it needs to be to help just isolate your mind and drive the car. It is boggling my mind somewhat that we're in sport and it doesn't feel too aggressive. Back into hybrid auto, so the engine is off. It's showing how much charge there's left. We've got 22 miles on electric only. Do you know what? Let's stick it in electric only. That seems like a good thing to do. So you pop it on the drive mode wheel, on the steering wheel, e-power, and it should just waft away from the line without being too aggressive. Porsche claimed that because of the e-hybrid system, you will get 94 miles to the gallon in this. I'm not saying that's a lie. I'm just saying you're not going to get that, because as soon as your battery runs out, you are hauling a 17.9 kilowatt hour battery around with you. I don't think it's going to make a massive difference to fuel consumption. It's a 4-litre V8 at the front. You're still going to be able to take off even if you don't have the hybrid system, which is fine. Overall, the driving dynamics of this car are sensational. Practicality, absolutely. Performance, yep, without a doubt. I think this is possibly one of the best all-round cars I've ever driven. And do you know what? I might even go as far as saying this might be one of the best sports cars I've ever driven, and it's not even a sports car. Looking to buy your next car? At Big Motoring World, we have thousands, yes, thousands of cars across our forecourts, because we're big on choice and we're big on what matters to you. Now, if you're looking to sell your car, we will give you a 7-day guaranteed valuation if you sell the car to bigwantsyourcar.com. This means when you send us a picture of your car, we don't chip you down on price like some others. And with no admin fees and instant bank transfers, you get the money straight away. Cha-ching! And did I mention that we also pick up your car free of charge? This is the Mercedes-Benz GT63S, fettled by AMG. Under the bonnet, we have a 4-litre V8, producing over 630 brake horsepower. Now, to look at it, you might think that it is directly related to the two-door coupe, but you'd be surprised to learn that it isn't. Underneath, it has more in common with an E-Class than anything else, and it's borrowed bits from the CLS to make it look the way that it does. Like all AMG engines, it is stamped by the individual that signed it off. In this case, a Mr. Sardar Khan. Thank you very much, sir. But it is quite the interesting thing. First of all, you've got to look at the sheer mass of the 63S. When it was released, it was the single most powerful car that you could buy from Mercedes-Benz. But because it's so big, they thought, well, we're going to have to try and reduce some of the weight here. So this, aluminium. Underneath here, that you can't see, an aluminium steel plate underneath the engine. That is for rigidity. That is usually just for Mercedes-Benz convertibles. They put a host of structural strengthening from front to rear, and it's still over 2 tons. It's a big car, but considering it's over 2 tons, it will still shoot you to 62 miles an hour in 3.2 seconds. Quad exhaust, GT63S, and as my young cameraman would say, it's got a bunda for it. Give it a kick. Oh, that was genuinely wicked. Now this car is striking, so whilst I cool off under the collar after that lovely bit of rev action, let's talk about what this thing looks like. So at the front, we've got this rather haunchy Panamera style grille. So the air will go through here, for example, just to cool these gigantic brakes down at the front. Massive calipers there, big yellow ones on this particular model. Not going to miss that in a hurry now, are we? But the haunchiness powers through. You see here, just V8 bi-turbo 4MATIC Plus on the side, just to remind people and yourself that you're driving a twin-turbo machine of amazing V8 goodness. Now, it's got a nice, lovely swoop in here. It still resembles the GT63 Coupe, doesn't it? But don't forget, it isn't actually derived from that particular car. It is a 4-door coupe, so you've got nice, huge rear doors and lots of room in there as a passenger. We will be exploring the interior at great length in just a second. So if you're watching the video to this point, carry on, because the inside of this particular GT63S is something worth getting your teeth into. And then as you swoop towards the back, let's just dive into a little bit more detail. Now you do have an electronic spoiler that comes up and down. That will come up and down when we drive it in a bit, but just the tail lights there, I mean, they are kind of CLS-y, I guess, and that makes sense because it's kind of related to a Mercedes-Benz CLS. Quad exhausts, absolute beauties. If you want to open the boot, it's just a button at the bottom there. Huge boot, plenty of room, 500 litres-ish. Bit of a lip, but all good. I could stare at this car's bottom for an awfully long time. But it's all very well and good being outside a car. It's all about inside, I guess, because that's where you're going to spend most of your time. Let's hop inside and explore the cabin. And the inside of the GT63S is, well, it's opulent. I'll give it that. It's also very creamy, this one. So make of that what you will. But let's go through what you get in one of the most expensive Mercedes-Benz that you can buy. Well, in front of you, you have got the double digital displays. So one is your dashboard and the other is your infotainment, both 12.3 inches in diameter. You look through a sporting AMG steering wheel to have a look at your rev counter and your speed counter. And then you've got your flappy paddles for the 9-speed gearbox. Now, what the steering wheel does have that is worth a little play around is 2 little contraptions just off of the honker in the middle. So Selecting your driving mode, you click through a little round selector knob just on the right hand side. The click, by the way, is super satisfying, but you can pick between individual, comfort, sport, sport plus, and race. It's lovely. Then on the other side, you can actually play around with shortcuts essentially. So the previous driver had turning the loud exhausts on and off and putting the spoiler up and down, but you can play with that. Now, in terms of the rest of this cabin, well, it's very E-Class, very S-Class, but you'd expect that from a manufacturer like Mercedes. So you pick your lights on and off down here, parking sensors, lane assist, all of that is managed through buttons on this carbon fiber looking dashboard here. Burmester sound system, lovely stuff. Now in the middle, it gets pretty interesting. You've got the lovely vents, obviously. These are nice. They change color when you put the heat on. For example, they turn red. You turn it down to blue, they turn blue because it's getting cooler. The infotainment system itself is managed through a mix of buttons and this touchpad here. It works fine. It's not fiddly as such, but once you get used to it, it's pretty good. You can manage your car through here, for example, change the color of the ambient lighting, change your massage setting on your seats. In the middle, you've got your climate control buttons, all very nice aluminium finish, and you've got a wireless pad to charge your phone in there as well. And then down the middle, it's meant to be reminiscent of a V8. So you've got 4 of these little buttons either side of kind of your central tunnel. So gear selector, and you've got these buttons here that can control shortcuts, if you like, between your driver settings, ESC off, stop start off, your volume on the left here, and all the rest of it. Pretty interesting setup, if I say so myself. Nice little added bonus. You've got your sun visors here, but they do extend out like that for reasons. Now the seats, heated, cooled, memory, and they're very, very comfortable. You can tell that this thing is designed to go distance, and it's definitely a good place to plonk your behind to do that. Nice little small details just worth mentioning. So on the gear selector, on the headrest, and actually on the back of the key, you've got the crest of AMG, which has adorned on the top. Affelterbach, that's my German. Not great. But that is the town that AMG sprouted from, and what a wonderful little town it must be. But it's those little bits of attention to detail that I quite enjoy. In the back, it does feel a little bit claustrophobic, if I'm honest with you. Maybe because of the sloping roof, maybe because it doesn't have a pano roof in this particular one, who knows. But that said, it's not uncomfortable. The seats are nice and padded still, and this is my legs versus my driving position, so plenty of room. Let's be honest, I'm not massively tall, but at 5'8", I'm average, I guess. You've got your middle seat, which is actually not too bad. I mean, you've got this big center console that will get in the way, but it's not as obtrusive as, say, Panamera Turismo Turbo S. And then in the middle, arm down, feeling nice and comfortable, and a nice little velvet store case in here. Everything in here is a little bit gauche, if I'm honest, but not the worst thing in the world. Little complaint, the cup holders are weird. They're just weird. They open, they've got little things. I mean, they'll hold your can of Coke or whatever. I just find them a bit plasticky and fiddly, and this car was over £120,000 new, and you just think, well, maybe it would have felt a little bit more premium. But I am literally picking holes in something that doesn't need to be picked in. It is still a lovely place to be. You could easily sit in the back of here for a long, long time. The inside of the GT63S feels rather plush as you're driving along. I'm actually sat in comfort mode at the moment, and it doesn't feel as aggressive behind the wheel as the rather raspy exhaust pipe might suggest. But there's still plenty of power under your right foot. I think that's fairly guaranteed. Nice little thing that you wouldn't realise until you take it out on the open road is, as you bend left and right, the seat actually inflates to keep you in position. It actually catches you off guard. It caught me off guard, but it's definitely feels like that's where your money's going. That kind of smart driving. I think it would only be smart to just change ourselves into Sport Plus and take a drive that way. Oh, Jesus Christ! I mean, blinking heck. This thing is pretty quick. We're already at the speed limit for the road. Now, it is a whopping great car, but actually, when you're behind the wheel, zipping around, it does a really good job of disguising its size. You're not exactly going to be zipping around the Nürburgring in this thing. You are going to be doing what I'm doing here, driving down a suburban road, off to do your errands. It's really what it's designed to do. But it feels nice, it's pretty nimble. The steering is nice and direct. Everything is crystal clear in front of me, that's for sure. There's no misconceptions of what the car is doing, and it does relay the information really nicely. The one thing that you do realise is it can be a little bit gnarly on the accelerator. It does just want to take off. It doesn't want to do low speed all that much. Thanks for just cutting me up there, sir. There we go. Let's give this a bit of a whirl. The back end definitely didn't come out there. It's perfectly fine and legal. This particular model is very creamy on the inside. Don't know if I like that. It wouldn't be my personal choice. And you've just seen me dial down from Sport Plus there. If I'm honest, Sport Plus, you really don't want to be using that on the road. It's too much. If you dial it back to Sport, the accelerator actually is just that little bit more content on the road. We've just ridden through one of the million potholes that we're lucky enough to have here in the United Kingdom, and it rode it pretty well. I mean, we're on massive 21-inch alloys on this, so you should be able to contend with the roads here relatively well on those particular rims. So V8 versus V8, but it does show that even though they have the same type of engine, they are very, very different. The GT63S, well, it stands out, doesn't it? It's just so individual. And frankly, it's a bit of a thug. The Porsche Panamera Turismo. Well, the e-hybrid makes it interesting. It's certainly very, very fast, and it's very practical. It feels just that much more inviting and welcoming. But then this, it just has so much flair. I think the reality is it's subjective. It comes down to what you prefer. If I had to pick one, do you know what? It'd be a really tough ask. I like how this looks. I like how this performs. I think I'll just take both of them. But to be fair, that's not always an option. And if you're looking for a brand new car, then head over to Big Motoring World, where we're big on choice and we're big on what matters to you.